morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Cramorant VMAX, because it turns out that Cramorant VMAX might not be a joke deck. It might be genuinely busted. And I am beyond delighted. Now, this was a huge tournament, which happened in Taiwan, I believe. And there were 2,000 people. 1,995 players. And the third place deck out of 2,000 players was Cramorant VMAX. So when I tell you that this deck is not just a joke deck, it's actually legit, it's genuinely a top tier brilliant deck. This didn't win some little tournament. This got third place at a 2,000 person tournament, which is frankly over the top fun. So yeah, it's time to start taking Cramorant seriously, because Cramorant is actually really, really good. To be fair, it's listed as top 4, but it is listed as a first top 4, so I'm calling it third place. It might actually be fourth place, but you know what I mean? It's pretty much the same. This is wonderful. And of course, well, we'll get there. We will get there. So what have we got then? Well, Cramorant VMAX, the reason people see it as a little bit of a joke deck is because the attack is basically let's flip coins and cross our fingers. Now, Cramorant VMAX, remember, is actually exclusive to Shining Fates, and what we've got here is an attack whereby you flip one coin for each energy attached to Cramorant VMAX. That is each energy, not energy card, so multiple energy will count multiple times, and you deal 80 damage for each heads. So the theory here, of course, is extremely simple. You want to pile energy onto Cramorant VMAX, and then try and flip a bunch of heads and cross your fingers for all of the smashing. Sounds kind of fun. But don't be sleeping on Cramorant V. Cramorant V has also got a really rather nice, well, pair of attacks. Beat Catch for 1 energy, lets you search for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. And we're pairing this with Porygon Z, more on that in a moment. Porygon is my second favourite Pokemon, until Mamoswine came around, was my absolute favourite. So I am delighted that Porygon's back. But you're relying on a stage 2 deck here. And this isn't like the Welder decks, you're not getting a turn 1 spit shot here. So being able to search for a rare candy in a Porygon Z, that seems like a really good way to spend your first turn. Don't sleep on Beat Catch here. Beat Catch is a genuine, legitimate reason why this deck ends up being so good, because you can, unless your opponent interrupts you using something like Amani, you can pretty much guarantee that turn to Porygon Z, and from there, you should be feeling pretty gosh darned good. Now, you do have Spit Shot as well. It does 160 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's really good for instance, taking out your opponent's bench Pokemon, like Dedenne. But it is worth pointing out here, we are not playing Memory Capsule here. That is not being played in this particular list. You can still just use Cramorant V and not evolve up, but generally that's not how we tend to go for this. But do bear in mind that Spit Shot is absolutely an option, and I would be very surprised if it wasn't used at least a few times throughout the tournament. Now, the other really important Pokemon coming in here is obviously, as aforementioned, Porygon Z. Because the whole point of Cramorant is pile energy on and smash. Well, you need to pile energy on. How do you pile energy on? Well, easy. Porygon Z. It lets you attach as much energy as you like, as long as it is special energy. Cool. That's it. That's what you do. You use Porygon Z to attach as much energy as you possibly can, or at least as much as you need to, and then you start flipping coins for Cramorant. Bearing in mind, Cramorant's got 320 HP and a nice resistance. This sounds like the kind of thing that, unless you're up against a Lightning deck, and I know people like to say that, oh, it's Lightning weak, it's unplayable. Well, obviously not. You had to go 9-2 in your Swiss rounds to get into Top Cut. and then ended up in top 4, shall we say this is absolutely legit. Now, there are a couple of other little Pokemon coming in here as well. We do have a Mew from Unbroken Bonds, protects your bench. Mew became a lot more important because remember, this was when Battle Styles was legal. So Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, it can do 120 to 2 of your bench Pokemon, or 2 of your Pokemon active bench. It doesn't really matter. You choose whichever you like. So the fact that this was actually an option means you basically have to play Mew nowadays. So we do see Mew. We've then got 2 copies of Dedenne, discard your hand, draw 6 cards, and 1 copy of Crobat, draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. These are cards you don't want to play in a deck like this, but essentially you need to set up Porygon, and you need to draw into your energy, and these are cards that are going to help you do so. Now, speaking of that energy, it probably won't surprise you to hear that we are just going special energy. That is really important because of the whole Porygon thing, and this is largely as you might expect it. Obviously, we're playing 4 triple acceleration energy. This is absolutely nuts because triple acceleration energy is free energy, which means you get to flip 3 coins by virtue of that 1 card, and yes, you can attach multiple during your turn. That is an absolute no-brainer. Similarly, recycle energy is an absolute no-brainer here because when it gets discarded from play, it goes back to your hand. It means if Cramorant VMAX gets knocked out, you get the energy back. But this also works beautifully on Cramorant V because Spit Shot discards all energy from Cramorant V to do 160 to one of your opponent's bench. Well, here you can use Spit Shot with recycle energy, and that energy goes straight back to your hand, and then you can just reattach it next turn, and you haven't actually lost anything. That is pretty gosh darned awesome. The other one that's played as a 4 of here is draw energy, and I love this. Draw energy, when you attach it, you draw a card. Well, that means that throughout the game, you're just going to be drawing 4 extra cards. And when we have supporter cards that draw 4 cards, there's always a downside. So that is an extra decent supporter throughout the course of the game, just from attaching energy. Sounds good to me. We then have a couple copies of Capture Energy. Lets you, when you attach it to a Pokemon, search for a basic Pokemon and bench it. That's nice for just helping getting you rolling. And 2 copies of Powerful Colorless Energy. Lets you do an extra 20 damage to your opponent's active. It's not quite so important here, because you are just flipping coins and hopefully doing like infinite damage. But for instance, if you flip 2 heads, that's 160. Powerful Colorless Energy is a KO on a Crobat. So it can make a difference and it can break the tie, and you need more energy, so this will do quite nicely. In terms of your trainer cards here, there really isn't all that much which is particularly exciting, but there are a couple of weird things. You do have Glimwood Tangle, lets you reflip. Remember, it's all or nothing, but if you don't flip enough heads, use Glimwood Tangle to reflip. That seems pretty good. There is 1 copy of Big Charm to give yourself a bit of extra HP to try and give yourself that little bit of extra survivability. And there are a couple copies here of Hyper Potion. Hyper Potion, remember, heals 120 while discarding 2 energy. But remember, if the energy you choose to discard is recycle energy, it will just go straight back to your hand, so you can essentially use this to heal with no downside. Clearly, that's a very, very good thing indeed. And then it's pretty much what you would expect. We've got Quick Ball to search out our basics. We've obviously got Rare Candy, because it's a stage 2, you need the Rare Candy. We've got Pokemon Communication, which will get your evolved Pokemon, which you need to get your evolved Pokemon. And we got 1 copy of Reset Stamp, which puts your opponent down to a new hand equal to their remaining prizes. So late in the game, you can hopefully Reset Stamp them, and they don't have very much. In terms of supporters, it's pretty much what you would expect. Our supporter cards of choice are Professor's Research, discard your hand, draw 7, and Marnie, shuffle both players' hands, put them on the bottom of their respective decks. You get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4, bit of draw and a bit of disruption. And then a couple copies of Boss's Orders. And don't get me wrong, right? Boss's Orders will still do what Boss's Orders always does, and that is that you can drag a Pokemon off the bench and KO it. But it's also really important to note that you've got Spit Shot here. So what you can do is drag a Pokemon into the active that isn't able to retreat, hopefully late in the game, and start using Spit Shot to take out the bench. You've got a really nice emergency plan with this deck. If your opponent has had a much better start than you, reset stamp to 1 or 2, bosses orders a Pokemon into the active that isn't able to get out the active, and if you're reset stamping them to a low hand, that's going to be a lot more likely. And then start using Spit Shot to take out their bench, so you never KO their active, which means they've actually got to switch it themselves. A lot of the time, they can just let you KO it and then do what they want. That's not an option here, ladies and gentlemen, and that sounds pretty good to me. I adore this deck. I loved Cramorant VMAX when it came out in Japan. And I covered this deck a little while ago, and I was told by a bunch of people that, look, Wassy, it's a fun deck, but let's face it, it's a bit of a gimmick deck. It's a bit of a meme. It's not a legitimate deck. Well, maybe it is, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe it is. But I want to know what you think about it, and I want to know if you think it really is for real, or whether you think that getting top 4 at a 2,000-person tournament was just a fluke. Let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.